I'm here today as a result of a webinar that I saw earlier on this afternoon by a guy called Peter Sage. And he went into considerable detail in this webinar about things that really made me prick my ears up. He was talking about brainwaves and the states of mind that we get into that are driven by what he called cell inertia. We have 50 trillion cells in our body, and each one of them is programmed by virtue of hormones that are released in the brain. The brain drives the hormone distribution system, and our cells pick up the hormones and respond accordingly to give us feelings. And those feelings translate into joy and positivity, or depression, anxiety, stress, and negativity. And by Peter's own admission, most of humanity falls towards negativity. Now, he described it as a default compass system. So our compass naturally faces north. Our magnetic north is negative. So our physiology drives towards magnetic north, negative. And in his description, he was talking about the different ways in which the compass needs to move for us to be able to escape that magnetic north fixation and move our trajectory into different directions. And this really resonated with me. So what I'm going to talk about today is brainwaves and describe a little bit about what they do. I've drawn this chart to describe blame guilt cycles in a management movie. And blame guilt cycles are really familiar in relationships. If you've had a long-term or are in a long-term relationship, you'll know all about blame guilt cycles. You blame the other person, you feel guilty, they blame you, and so it goes on round and round and round, everybody blaming the other for a situation that both parties are contributing to, but you can't see your own contribution because your brain is firmly stuck in where it thinks it should go. And there's the erroneous bit, and that's the bit that I want to help untangle today. When we're very young, up until 7 years, we work on theta waves.
And theta waves accept information unequivocally, unconditionally.
Theta brainwaves are simply absorptive information from the external environment, and there is no reasoning behind it. There's no analysis going on. It's just absorption. So when we're very young, until we're about 7 years old, that's what's going on. So if your parent says to you,
"No, you can't have that because you don't deserve it, so you haven't done well enough," or
there's something negative that your parent told you during 0 to 7 years, within that scale, that's going to stick. It's going to stick forever, for as long as your physiological entity exists. And that explains a lot, because we all have deep down in our minds a suspicion that there's something in our personal history, in our childhood, that has made us the way we are, that creates the cycles that we get into, that makes us see our parents in our partners. You're just like my dad, you're just like my mum. It's familiar territory for us to get absorbed in these programs of brainwave, hormone, cellular dependence. It's all born back in the early years of our lives. When we hit 7, we start to move into beta waves. Beta waves allow for rationality. Beta waves are the analytical thinking waves, and they're faster. So they carry us through into another stage of thinking, and thereafter we continue.
And the theta wave learning kind of gets forgotten, gets pushed into the background. So I'm going to scribble on this now. So instead of blame guilt, let's have beta and gamma.
Gamma's the fastest of our brain waves. Gamma waves are excitable and they create excitement. They're very high frequency. Beta are the next ones down. So beta waves are still active, but they're not quite as zingy as gamma waves. And bearing in mind that we're working here with both positive and negative energy, you can see how the frequency of these oscillations with these wavelengths, which are quite high, are going to gear us and feed us into activity of one kind or another. Whether that activity is to get anxious, depressed, tear our hair out, cry, think about dying, wonder if there's any purpose to life, and all that sort of stuff. That's the negative side. And then the positive side is self-reliance, it's motivation, it's an understanding of your purpose, that you've got a purpose, you've just got to drive yourself in the right direction. And you make hay while the sun shines. So while you've got the energy and you're awake, you're driving yourself in that direction. So there are two sides to the coin. Are you doing more? I'm all turning around. I'll bring him on my shoulder. Give me a little boy. So while we've got that far,
we've got the excitableness of these waves.
And I've probably been shouting, so now I'm quietening down a bit because I've got an owl on my shoulder. I want to fill in with the other waves. Randomly, because I don't know why I've placed them in the circle as I have, but randomly that's the completion of the brainwave cycle. And I'm now in a little box probably, and you're reading some stuff that's going by about brainwaves and what makes them up, where they are in the spectrum. Now gamma waves, and they come into the spectrum that is very audible. These frequencies obviously have some kind of correspondence with the way we feel, the amount of information we take in, and what we do with it. And the important thing about changing our course for one that we would want instead of magnetic north that we don't want relies on our ability to be able to overcome cell inertia. So if you want to know more about that, then hey, look up Peter Sage. I'm sure he's got more on this and under his self-mastery stuff. I can recommend that. It's worth watching. And we will explore more of this in further detail in the next episode, because I just want to leave you with this information to start with and then come back and do another chunk later on. That's all right with you. Okay, so it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from him, and we'll see you soon. Love you loads.